Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by.
On the morning shift.
Anything
Could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
All right, everyone. Welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift. I'm AJ Walsh. I'm glad to be here with you. Glad that you're here with us this morning. We're broadcasting live on CKLU 96.7 FM on the radio. We're also coming at you live from the streaming online at CKLU.ca. You just click on the Radio Player Canada app and you can download that as well. So if you just click on it, you can stream us. If you download it, you can take us with you and listen to us anywhere, anytime on your favorite device. Also, we are streaming live at facebook.com/Sudbury News, youtube.com/Sudbury News for the time being. We're here. We're not sure how much longer it will be streaming on those two platforms, given recent legislation and all that jazz. But we're grateful to be here while we are here, and happy that you're able to be on with us on those platforms. And with that, make sure to like, share, subscribe, follow all of the social medias, as well as comment, because commenting makes the show a lot better, and that's the reason for the show, is so that way we can have a conversation about the news that impacts our lives, whether it's local, regional, provincial, national, international, whatever it might be. We can discuss those things that affect our lives each and every day. And we are grateful for those that come on each and every day. We got a great little community that has started just since the show has been around, a little over a year and a half now. March of 2022 is when we started this incarnation of the show. We used to be Sudbury Sports Talk, been around since 1917. No, we haven't been around since the 1917. 2017, we've been around since. CKLU has been around since 1984, however, and so that's where I got that kind of mixed up a bit. CKLU is your campus and community radio station, originally broadcasting from a little trailer on Ramsey Lake Road in Laurentian University's campus, and now we are broadcasting live from the corner of Elgin and Elm Street in the old Telegraph building, all part of the new McEwen School of Architecture under Laurentian University. Yeah. So we're grateful that we have that location, and Laurentian University is still a part of community radio, campus and community radio here in Greater Sudbury. So we got a great show planned for you this morning. We will kick it off with a little bit of weather, and then we have some local news headlines, along with the continuing of our bit of a deep dive into the state of our media, state-sponsored media, pretty much, CBC, the National Citizens Inquiry. There was a former reporter who worked for CBC, Global News, CTV, and other news outlets, reporting on how they covered the pandemic and some things that we could take away and learn from that, because our own government didn't want to do an inquiry into how we handled that, even though, if you remember it, you and I have been through it, right? So you'd think have you been through anything like that before? Have you ever really seen government have to make such decisions on a large scale that affected so many people in so many ways in so little of time, and then not go back and say, oh, okay, let's see how we did with that? So they have no interest in doing that whatsoever. So the National Citizens Inquiry took it upon themselves. Citizens are the government anyways, right? So I guess in some shape or form, it was a government inquiry, people by the people. And so they filmed it all. They captured all of the testimony, so you yourself can go and see all of the testimony. It's public. It's not behind closed doors. It's very transparent and open, and you can see these people testifying of their particular experiences through that and how their lives were affected. And there's many professionals in many different industries testifying there. So a good cross section, and they went all across the country, coast to coast to coast, and we're able to have various people testifying. So this particular reporter testifies about the things that he saw as a journalist and compares news gathering to propaganda, and how he used different examples of news gathering during the pandemic, and how there was news gathering, but then how CBC covered it was basically under the definition, if you were to put the propaganda glasses on, through the lens of propaganda. That's how the CBC covered it, with a lot of opinion, not very much facts, and they were on a certain side kind of thing, and trying to persuade people to believe a certain thing rather than give them the facts and have them come to a conclusion on their own, which would be news gathering. That was our definition that we thought the CBC was following, was news gathering, the one that we come to trust, right? We have trusted it for years and years and years. And then a poll came out and said, wow, many people don't trust you anymore. And they said, oh, well, how do we increase our trust? So they belong to all these different organizations that care about trust. Well, this particular reporter pointed out, it's okay, trust comes when you give truth. So it's not about trust. It's about the truth. Give the truth and people will then trust you. But they don't say anything about truth in any of their public mentions about how people feel about them. It's all about trust. Please trust us. Trust me. Trust me. Usually someone who has something to hide says, trust me. The other people don't even have to say that because you know them. You ever have someone you trusted the most in the world and you knew they're just through and through a pure spirit, just a good person? They would never say, you can trust, you need to trust me. You have to trust me. And always saying, trust me. It's usually those that you shouldn't trust that are saying that all the time, right? I'm not saying that's the CBC, but I'm just saying they're putting themselves in that category, whether they know it or not. To people know that if you have to keep saying, you know, you can trust me, right? You know, I would never do anything to hurt you, right? People who say things like that over and over, I would never do anything to hurt you. Why would you even have to say that if you wouldn't do anything to hurt somebody? You wouldn't just, it wouldn't have to be said. It would just be known, right? So we'll continue with that along with, so what were the CBC? Why were they doing what they were doing? Why were they persuading instead of just telling the truth or, just saying facts? Why were they trying to persuade to something? Well, there could be a good reason for that. And it could come from the industry that was behind the solution to what we were going through, right? Which is very powerful politically, has a lot of money, and then took all of your money to then give you the solution, right? And became more powerful because of that. And so government, industry, and media, the triangle, came together, apparently, to have one story that they were going to persuade you on, not give you facts about, but persuade you that this is the right thing for you. This is, and anyone else who goes against it, just like I loaded up my background here, which is just yesterday's video with the beginning of it, as you can see in the top left corner, right corner, depends on how you're viewing this. But anyways, it sends, if you really want real information on this, on this, click here. So YouTube is censoring even us talking about this, saying they're giving us the same narrative that we're telling you about today, is that everybody is trying to persuade you about. Just give us the facts. You don't have to persuade us. That's all. Just say, this is what this is. That's what that is. This is this. That is that. Here's the sources. It's news gathering. But you can't have that. If for some reason there's something up, if someone's not 100% truthful, then you have to persuade instead of just tell the truth. You have to say, well, and then give a story on it. Do you ever hear the saying, if you tell the truth all the time, you don't have to remember anything because the truth, you just always speak the truth. You don't have to really remember, because if someone asks you a question, you just tell them the truth. But a lie, you have to memorize all your lies. And then so that way, like one lie leads to another lie leads to another one, until you're like, okay, enough's enough. We got to stop talking about this. The conversation is over now. Why? Why is the conversation over? Why is the conversation over? So someone, and we all have been through this, when you're trying to get to the truth, they say, I'm not talking anymore. I'm done. Or they get angry and storm off, because that's all they can do. If you ask questions to somebody who's telling the truth, they'll simply tell you the answer. The answer is clear. You don't have to shut them down, cancel them, stomp your feet, make all these measures. If the truth is just there, it is what it is, right? So anyways, then we'll get into a little bit of that, of maybe looking at our healthcare system, our healthcare industry, the organization of it, and the institution is the word I was going for. Just like all the other institutions that we have in this world that affect our lives, that we have to interact with. We'll look at our healthcare institutions, see if they were part of this, narrative, or are they telling the truth as well? Like what truth is there in our healthcare industry? Is it there to keep us healthy in the first place, right? So stay tuned for that. If that kind of stuff is going to interest you, we'll finally get to that presentation that I've been wanting to get to. And we might have a follow-up to a comment that was made by a viewer by the handle of Jungle Jim, talking to somebody yesterday. If I'm able to, I came on a little bit late today, but hopefully I'll be able to have this queued up by the time. So I might be able to have that. So let's hope I can do that, and we'll be back right after the weather. So stay tuned. Great show planned today. And Sudbury Weather is brought to you by SudburyWeather.ca. For all things Sudbury weather, visit SudburyWeather.ca as I get this up here. And I was able to get that follow-up video queued up, so that's good. Currently, it's -6. It feels like -12. It's mostly cloudy. Mix of sun and cloud for the rest of the day, with a 30% chance of flurries this morning, clearing near noon. And wind will be gusting up to about 50 kilometers this morning, so a bit windy. Wind chill will feel like -13 in the morning. Tonight, clear, becoming partly cloudy near midnight, and moderate wind, maybe up to about 40. The low will be +1, with the temperature rising to +4 by the morning, so a little bit of a warm one. And mainly cloudy tomorrow with a high of +6. And Saturday, 30% chance of showers, high of +2, 30% chance of flurries or rain showers on Sunday, high of +2, and then a 30% chance of flurries on Monday with a high of -5. Sunny on Tuesday. So far, anyways, what's that? Five days from now? Anything can happen. But for now, they're predicting sunny on Tuesday, high of -2. And then Wednesday, mix of sun and cloud, high of -1. So relatively moderate temperatures for this time of year. A look at your satellite, you can see some of the clearing coming from the west towards the east. Other than that, totally cloudy over northern and central Ontario. That's your Sudbury weather, brought to you by SudburyWeather.ca. We'll be back with your comments, news headlines, and much more right after this. All right, and we are back, indeed back. Let's just get this show on the road here as we have to click everything. All things clickable. All that to just turn on some volume and then escape, because Facebook works a certain way. You got to click a lot to get the video to begin, but when it's done, the next video will just automatically come on without you even being able to stop it. But it is what it is. So good morning, everyone. A lot of people joining us already on the show today. Like I said, great show today planned, looking at media itself, a follow-up on yesterday comment from a viewer, listener, and then into the state of the media, CBC's coverage of the last 4 years, then a presentation from a renowned doctor on the healthcare system in the world, really. It seems like we're pretty much unified on the healthcare around the world as the WHO kind of takes charge of the world's health. The UN kind of steps in as the world's governance body as we step into a new global society, right? That's what's happening. That's the truth, whether we like it or not. That's the when you're on a trip and you see a sign that says Sudbury is coming up in 63 kilometers, you pretty much think if you go 63 kilometers per hour and Sudbury's coming up in 63 kilometers, you'll be there in an hour. So you kind of look at the world events and you see who are the players, the stakeholders in the world. You know we're going to a global world. That's where all the world leaders and corporate entities, all the big institutions are bringing us. You know, they're bringing us into this one world government, one world currency, digital currency, if you will, too, getting rid of cash. Everything will be online, trackable, traceable, and then vulnerable, because if someone decides you said something or did something, like on this video, hey, this is wrong. We don't want this kind of information to be shared. Then it's just a click of a button and you go to the grocery store and they're like, sorry, your chip ain't working. You actually don't exist, So that's the kind of world we're going towards, social credit score system. It's already in place in China. China's the model. As the chair of my university department of the last course I was in, or the last degree that I obtained, the chair of that particular area of learning, communications, said that China was the model. Of course. I said, yeah, doesn't that scare? No, it's the model. Yeah, and it's great. It's great. So there's a lot of people who are welcoming this new world that we're heading into. It's going to be utopian. Unicorns everywhere for everyone. Good morning, everyone. That's Denise and Monique. Good morning, Sudbury. Sunshine emoji. Thank you so much. It's very... we need more sunshine, right? We're heading into the shortest day of the year, by the way, in just a short while, and about a week or so. Good morning, everyone from Barrie, Ontario. That is Marianne. Belinda, good morning. Usually has a really great positive statement. Sometimes in life, we are taken into troubled waters, not to drown us, but to cleanse us. We are all here together, taking this journey, 100%. Thank you so much. 2 heart emojis on that one as well. And thanks for liking and sharing, Marianne. We really appreciate it. Liette, good morning. All from Collingwood. Appreciate you being on. Maurice, good morning, with a sunshine smiley emoji as well, or a smiley emoji nonetheless. And good rising, Monique. Thanks for being with us. Monique says, what the governments have done to its people is criminal. Generations are going to feel the repercussions of these actions. We are going to have to pull together and help each other to get through this. In any society, even though, it was a lot of stuff going on. So if you look back in any society that's gone through, whether it was a revolution in Russia, whatever country we've gone through it, so many of them have, where just mass confusion, just chaos, whether it's war, whether it's economic collapse, whether it's something that's, Mother Nature kind of imposed on the people. People are resilient and they do band together and they do overcome, and they will overcome regardless of, even what we talk about on this show all the time. And I think the faith in that is what ultimately makes it come to pass, right? The faith in us, what we've been given to do. It's like we all have an innate part of our DNA that we've been given is to love and to care about our fellow beings. And there's only a small group of people, I believe, in this world that kind of have suppressed that part of themselves. And unfortunately, there's many people at the toppest, at the highest levels that have found ways to do that. But anyways, that is the way it is. And good morning, Vin. Thanks for being with us as well, Jerome. Good morning, everyone. I used to carry the water buckets to the Sudbury News cabin back in 1917. Yeah, sorry about that little slip up this morning. 2017 is what I meant to say. Agreed, 100%. Thanks, Monique. Whatever was being said at the time. Jerome, Belinda. So our generations today are not, do not know how to suffer together or to overcome, but they will learn, and people will learn to do that. Because again, we have that in our DNA. 100%. Liette, why lie when you can tell the truth? The truth will do. 100%. Healthcare system is telling us the truth. Yeah, we'll have to see if they are. Blessings from Espanola. Denise, thanks for joining us. Chris, good morning. Ladies and gents. And Marianne says exactly, wouldn't trust them as far as I could breathe. Okay. Yeah. Jerome's looking forward to a few of our counselors coming on, it looks like, in comments today and previous comments to ask some more hard questions. So he says, Mike and Natalie, referring to Ward 5 and Ward 7 counselors of the city, been suspiciously missing from the conversation as of late. Would like to hear why they uphold firing of their colleagues for their vaccination status. Okay, that is a hard question, and we will ask them the next time they are on the show. And Natalie did come on the other day, piped in, and Mike has come on recently as well with some morning shout outs as well. So they are on the show quite a bit. Maybe not commenting as much, but I know they have the finger on the pulse for sure. So some more comments here. We really appreciate it. We do have to get into, however, a little bit of a follow-up from yesterday and then news headlines from today, local ones. But somebody put out there, it was Jungle Jim, so not sure who that is, but cool handle, by the way, was put up a Victoria. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being with us, Victoria. So, yeah, Jungle Jim was talking to, I forget which listener or which viewer yesterday, and said something like, we were talking about Agenda 2030, which is the UN's agenda, their goals, which include Sustainable Development Goals, SDG, and equity, diversity, and inclusion. So some of these things that we hear all come from the UN. And we hear them all the time, but we got to know where they come from. They come from the highest levels, the group that's set up to become the world government, right? The governing body of the world. And so that's where it's coming from. They've already kind of set out what their goals are. And Agenda 2030 comes from them. So in Jungle Jim's efforts to clarify or to, I don't know, it looked like a little bit of, what, you don't read these things? Here's Agenda 2030, and gave a link from an organization called the WEF, which did not come up with Agenda 2030. It was the UN that did that. Now, the WEF is the World Economic Forum, and they are an organization run by the head of what was formerly known as the Bilderberg Group, which they used to meet in secret, behind closed doors, with elected officials, big corporate CEOs and things like that, and media people. And anyways, behind closed doors. But now they just do it in the open, and they have big conferences in Davos, Switzerland, and it's the same head, and his name is Klaus Schwab. And his father was an SS officer in the Second World War for the Nazis, and it is what it is. Whether he is one himself, we don't know, but his father was, and it's just a fact, right? It's a fact. It's the truth. What you want to do with that is up to you, But anyways, he and the World Economic Forum have goals as well. And many of them just come on the coattails of the UN, and they work together to make policies and whatever, and then influence governments, which he has said publicly he's infiltrated most of Trudeau's cabinet, Chrystia Freeland being one of them, that belong to the WEF and were part of the young leaders, which Justin Trudeau was a young leader of the WEF and kind of groomed them from a young age and up and up. And when we hear things like Build Back Better from our neighbors to the south, or the Great Reset, or we have a time for a reset, so Build Back Better was President Biden saying in his campaign speeches to become president. That comes directly from the WEF. And when you hear a reset, that comes from the WEF, which Justin Trudeau said immediately upon the pandemic beginning. Now this pandemic can be used for a great reset. So they want to implement a lot of these policies from these people that used to meet in secret, but now they just come out and say it openly and on their website. So Jungle Jim shared a link from the WEF, the take, and said, what, you don't read about Agenda 2030? I don't see anything wrong with this. Well, I read it as much as I could, the link he shared, and I saw some acronyms like SDG, so Sustainable Development Goals. And if you don't know what that means and you don't really read into it, and I think Jungle Jim should be watching this, or this is for you, a little bit of what they are and what they mean. Sustainable, right? Sounds good, but what does it mean coming from them? Development, sustainable development, and their goals. So what are their plans? So for development, what are they building back better? What are they planning for the future? What are their goals for us? And why are they the ones making them, first of all? and why do our leaders adopt them and then want to bring them to pass? So these are questions you need to ask yourself, but here's a little take on that. For Jungle Jim, if you're watching, this is for you. But anyways, a little bit on breaking down one of their sustainable goals, and I believe it is goal number 11. There's many of them, so maybe this will get you to look more into it. And it's good review for some of us. And also, maybe it's the first time you're hearing some of this stuff. You'll know what to look for. Here you go.
Goal number 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities. This is the United Nations global goal that is being used to justify the global surveillance system by selling the idea that the only way to save the planet is by having a huge chunk of the world's population living in cities. Existing cities must be upgraded to smart cities, and many, many more cities must be built from the ground up as smart cities. They say that these cities are sustainable, yet that couldn't be further from the truth. SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities. They say that SDG 11 is about making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. They go on to say that the world's population is constantly increasing. To accommodate everyone, we need to build modern, sustainable cities. For all of us to survive and prosper, we need new, intelligent urban planning that creates safe, affordable, and resilient cities with green and culturally inspiring living conditions. Firstly, how can a city ever be sustainable? How can those words even sit side by side when they contradict each other? Another oxymoron is green cities. Living in dense, stack and pack cities is actually less efficient and unsustainable because when you have to bring in resources from outside of the city, it means that the city is reliant on other lands to function. It is physically impossible for a city or people living in large enough numbers that require importation of resources to ever be sustainable, let alone lessen the impact on the environment. Where does the city get food and water? Where does the energy come from? What about cement, glass, wood, steel, solar panels? Where does the waste go? Where does the silicon come from that makes the solar panels? Where does the copper come from for all of the technology that runs the smart city? Where does lithium or nickel come from? What about plastic, asphalt, and every last consumer good? I could go on and on and on. The reality is that natural resources and rare minerals, along with other resources such as food and water for cities, come from lands that cities are dependent on. And so-called smart, green, and sustainable cities, as they grow in numbers, so will the lands that need to be denuded to build and maintain them. Yet the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, the Club of Rome, and all of the corporate players invested in running the world, they pretend to care about the environment and they tell concerned people exactly what they want to hear, whilst they financialize nature and build a global surveillance system. Their agenda does not solve pollution and depletion of natural resources, but instead it actually makes it worse. The sacrifices we are going to be expected to make in the name of the greater good is to move away from nature, off the land, and away from wide open spaces where we'll be more disconnected from nature and at the mercy of a technological and economic system that further dehumanizes us. Living in smart cities means that we'll no longer have the choice to live amongst nature, to live in natural surroundings. We'll be cut off from daily direct contact with nature, and we won't be able to interact with the earth the way humans are supposed to, because we will be living in artificial environments that are highly toxic, with minimal sunlight and consuming synthetic foods. There will be too many people living in too small of an area, full of a multitude of surveillance technology that not only monitors and manages us, but technologies that we will be reliant on to access the essentials. And so-called sustainable cities are being built in deserts, in dust bowls, which once again is not sustainable. It is simply not supported by evidence. Yet the illusion of the green, clean city is being sold to us, so we accept the reduction in living standards, along with all of the cameras, a digital twin, also known as a digital identity, sensors, and concentrated power in the hands of a few. To quote a genuine environmentalist, Paul Kingsnorth, what does it mean to save the planet, to save humanity? Even if creating this kind of technotopia would save the planet, I don't want to live in it because it looks like a prison to me. And they're using clever perception management and marketing, public relation campaigns, and corporately funded environmentalist groups who have members who have no idea how hoodwinked they are. This quote by Derek Jensen sums it up really well. You will have hundreds of thousands of people marching in the streets of Washington or New York or Paris. And if you ask those individuals, why are you marching? They will say, we want to save the planet. And if you ask them for their demands, they will say, we want subsidies for the solar and wind industry. That's extraordinary. I can't think of any time in history when a mass movement has been so completely captured and turned into lobbyists for an industry. And of course, they're using celebrities to promote these green illusions too, people who are very accustomed to reading a script and playing a role. I wonder if any of them realize what they are even talking about. If one was to question these solutions or even take a look at the Mining and Metals World Economic Forum intelligence map, they would find that it is actually a blatant lie, because it is more industry, more extraction, more denuding of the earth, and more mass production and an expansion of corporate interests. Whether it is to make solar panels, windmills, electric vehicles, they are still mining the planet. There are no plans to stop mining. In fact, it is expanding. And now they want to mine the deep sea to provide the materials necessary for the proliferation of so-called green technology. The ocean and its inhabitants are becoming the next sacrifice zone in the name of green technology. There is no loyalty to the planet. Exploitation will continue. Industrialized deforestation will continue. Taking land for resources from people will continue. Land theft in the name of preservation and mining resources will continue. And the same entities who have been polluting our planet, whilst they continue to gobble up all of our resources and our lands, are the very same that are behind these so-called solutions. They are just wearing a different hat. Although it is no secret that ExxonMobil, Big Ag, Big Timber, and Big Oil are behind biofuel. Biofuel is where they are taking the living planet, such as plants and trees, and turning them into fuel for power plants. And it's also no secret that all of those pushing it are funded by giant foundations who are invested in green technologies and the resource-based economy. Farms and forests are being destroyed for green battery factories. Drilling for oil is not stopping. A city just can't run on solar and wind, and they are doing a really good job diverting most people's attention from this reality. We are facing a future where we are being further and further dehumanized, where there will be even more concentrated power in the hands of a few. What they are trying to accomplish is to take control of every element of civilization under the guise of sustainability. And they are hoping that by the time the general public catch up with the fact that green technology is unsustainable, the smart city infrastructure will be built, and it won't matter what energy source it is ran on. It will be too late. They don't care that eventually it will be shown to be ineffective or unsustainable. They just care that you believe it long enough to get the technological infrastructure in and everyone dependent on it. Because once it's complete, there will be no way out.
And they mention again, right? So it's they're going to mine the heck out of the world, and so with all this dystopian future or whatever, Sudbury actually ends up being on the top of the food chain because of the mining that's here. So again, it's one could sit back and go, well, you know what? Look, we live here. Good things are going to happen. But at the same time, if you actually care about humanity and you just care about truth, you don't mind knowing who's behind what and why, and that there is a change of the guard going on. So oil companies are just switching from like extracting oil from the world to extracting minerals and metals to go along with the new battery push instead of so our power, and to build solar panels and to build wind turbines, which are very, they don't put out much electricity, and they have a larger carbon footprint on the environment. When you look at the whole scale of extraction to sale of whether it's a wind turbine or it's a solar panel. If you look at the whole life of that product and then measure the carbon footprint of that, and that's odd that the volume just comes on that video for no reason. It always comes on without the volume on, but that is what it is. So switching gears a bit to local. So that was for Jungle Jim for yesterday when he made his comment there. Sudbury's got a new leader of our public health, and that'll then go into our deep dive into the healthcare industry worldwide anyways. So yeah, CTV's got this story for us.
There's news today from Sudbury's health unit and the hiring of a new chief medical officer. It marks the end of a national search to find a replacement for the retiring Dr. Penny Sutcliffe. The new person in charge is Dr. Mustafa Herji. He joins Public Health Sudbury and Districts following more than 8 years at the health unit for the Niagara region, where he served as Associate Medical Officer of Health. Dr. Herji will join Public Health Sudbury and Districts in March, and that's when Dr. Sutcliffe will begin her year-long sabbatical leading to her retirement.
So there you go. So we will have a new CEO, head of the health in Sudbury. So there you have it. Now, Penny Sutcliffe was the former one, and we know that because it's public records on the public record that she made over $800,000 in 1 year during the pandemic, and I don't think that was her regular salary. And we're wondering why she was paid so much money. We still need to find this out. They said because she worked a little bit. She worked overtime and she was on a lot of conference calls, which many people were during the pandemic. What about, the nurses and the doctors and things like that? Were they given $800,000 a year because they were doing a lot of overtime and a lot of Zoom calls? But so we haven't really heard much about where the money came from and why she was paid so much. Like, show us exactly the details of that. But over $800,000 in 1 year. So, you think, wow, you buy a lottery ticket and you win $1 million. It's not that much shy of $1 million, $800,000. right? Taxable nonetheless. It's gross. So maybe she took home 450,000 of that or so. Who knows? But still, why? Why was she paid so much during the pandemic? Like, why then? And what was their role in telling us and keeping us informed? And what were they informing us about during that time, right? So the CBC reporter talking about that here. Let's see if we got a bit of time for maybe one question that he was asked. I'm not sure if we will, though, just because, but we'll see if we have it here. So here he's talking about a picture that was taken on during the Freedom Convoy, which was in opposition to what was going on and the mandates and things and the government's decisions to handle everything through the the healthcare crisis, if you will, of a pandemic. But for some reason, the CBC were taking pictures of things that no one else was able to get. A couple flags were there, but only CBC reporters were able to get these pictures, and no one else saw them. You know what I mean? So what was going on there? So here's a little taste of that.
Down on a little walkway. So this entire thing with all these flags was staged, according to the report. The second one on the right is very interesting because the camera angle is from down below. And she tried to reproduce that camera angle, but she had to go down to the Rideau Canal, which was locked and closed because they do that every winter because of the snow. And it's for safety reasons. So she wondered, how did someone get down to that spot in a locked and closed area at the moment that that flag was unfurled? And she pointed out that it was on the west wall of the Chateau Laurier Hotel next to the Parliament buildings, and that angled staircase only exists in one spot, and as soon as he's up to the pillar, he's on Wellington Street, and nobody saw the flag on Wellington Street or filmed the flag on Wellington Street. So that was the moment that that flag was unfurled, and there was a photographer there at the moment to take the picture. So how did that get out so far? She discovered, Alexa Lavoie on Rebel News discovered that the first person to tweet that picture of that nasty flag, that nasty flag, it is a nasty flag, the Nazi flag, was Justin Ling, the CBC reporter. The CBC website says Justin is an award-winning investigative journalist who specializes in stories that are misunderstood. Justin said he didn't want to reveal his source, who sent him that photo. I've seen several of Justin's pieces, and he almost never reveals his source. You have to trust.
And
he believes it.
Mr. Palmer, I'm going to have to.
And so that was the end of his presentation there. But again, showing how many people turn to the CBC for trusted news. CNN, the most trusted name in news, from Darth Vader of all people, doing the voice, right? Which is kind of ironic. But at the same time, we expect reporters to give us real news. But then, where did this picture come from? Who took it? You're not going to tell us. But yet, and then up in Parliament stands our fearless leader saying all these white supremacists down in Ottawa with all these flags. Let's say you wanted to do something. You wanted to control the narrative or whatever. How much would it be for you to just get these flags, get someone down there, take a picture of it, and then have the CBC report about it without fact checking? Because you just have to trust us. We're not just going to give you truth. So who took the picture? When was it? And who are these people with the flags? It was really not hard to tell. With all this facial recognition these days in surveillance, you should easily tell who had the flag. And these hateful flags, wouldn't that be hate speech? Shouldn't RCMP show up at their doors and say, why did you have these flags? Shouldn't they maybe have been arrested for possible, hate crimes of whatever? No, someone with social media who says something way far, less dangerous than that, they're the ones who get it. So anyways, a lot of questions going on, but it seemed like, Dr. Theresa Tam was in charge of the country during that time, right? Where was she born again? Okay, so how can we trust her? Why do we trust? So why did Justin Trudeau say, I'm not a healthcare professional, so I'm just going to turn to healthcare professionals? And basically, so he said, I'm not running the country right now. It's Dr. Theresa Tam. She's running the country. That's basically what he said at the time, right? Interesting. So that was very interesting. Here we have a renowned doctor giving a presentation on the healthcare system in general, and we'll be back right after this. It's a little bit telling, so I don't want to give too much of what he's going to talk about, and just let him talk about it. And just let's see if any of this resonates with us, and say, so is healthcare, and even in Sudbury, is that part of this? Like, or do we have a different healthcare than what this particular gentleman is talking about?
What you got to do, you got to eat right, sleep right, get sunshine, relax, and take care of your lifestyle, because the medical system will kill you. So basically this graph shows on the y-axis life expectancy, on the x-axis it's per capita healthcare expenditure. So us in America are proud to say we spend more on healthcare than any other country in the entire world, in the Western world, yet look at our life expectancy. It's significantly less. We have a big problem. And what you may not know is the life expectancy of Americans has gone down in the last 3 years, by 3 years. And how did that happen? Well, according to the White House, it's global warming. The only explanation they have. And so the other thing which is terrifying, the US makes up 5% of the world's population, yet we consume 55% of the prescription medication. This tells you how sick Americans are, that 55% of the world's consumption of medication is in this country. We are sick people. And so what do you think is the most commonly prescribed medication? Atorvastatin. Would people put up their hands if they take a statin just out of interest? Okay, we have a few. Atorvastatin. There's something called the great cholesterol myth. Why lowering your cholesterol won't prevent heart disease. It's called a myth. It's a hoax. What do statins do? They increase your risk of diabetes. They increase your risk of Alzheimer's disease and dementia. Yet they are the most commonly prescribed drugs in this country. And how'd you like this study? Survival of elderly patients stratified by cholesterol levels. Those patients with the highest cholesterol levels had the best survival. The British Medical Journal. Okay, here we're talking about a reputable journal. Lack of an association or an inverse association between low-density lipoprotein cholesterol and mortality in the elderly, a systematic review. This is one of the biggest hoaxes in medicine. But you know, you can say the same thing to diabetes. The use of diabetes medicine is a hoax. Alzheimer's medicine is a hoax. And if you look, Pierre spoke about the misinformation playbook. What the big pharmaceutical companies do is they cheat, they lie, they're deceptive. So in this study, a meta-analysis found that nearly 80% of the trials of statins had a conflict of interest, and almost 60% involved over half of the authors. So the people doing the study have a conflict of interest, and it's just by coincidence those studies with the greatest conflict of interest had the most favorable studies. So just to conclude on this little section that I was going to start on. This is by Marcia Angle, who resigned from the New England Journal of Medicine. She was the editor. It is simply no longer possible to believe much of the clinical research that is published, or to rely on the judgment of trusted physicians or authoritative medical guidelines. We in big trouble. I take no pleasure in this conclusion, which I reached slowly and reluctantly over my 2 decades as an editor of the New England Journal of Medicine. So I just started that off just to put in perspective that our system is broken. We have a broken healthcare system. Now, when it comes to COVID, I'm just going to make a few points. Firstly, as Pierre has said, it's a treatable disease. We knew it was treatable, as Lynn Finn and many others, Richard Urso, have said in March and April of 2020. We knew this was a treatable disease, and that if we had treated this disease appropriately, we wouldn't be where we are today. But Lynn gave us some hope with this new legislation in Texas. I want to mention 2 things which really scare me. The first one is cancer. We know, and there's some recent data come out the last few days from the VARS database, that those people who've been vaccinated, particularly the booster, it seems to be the booster, and it may be related to depression of cell-mediated immunity, that once you get your booster, the risk of cancer goes up exponentially. Cancers that we've never seen in people before. Colorectal cancer in young people. Breast cancer in young women. Cancer that was previously well controlled is now completely out of control. And there are multiple biological mechanisms by which these genetic therapies can induce cancer. We do not know how long the effect lasts for. We've already seen in Massachusetts there's been a big uptake in the risk of lymphatic tumors. So this is a very scary concept, and we don't know. The second thing is shedding. Pierre's written a brilliant Substack on shedding, which I would suggest everyone reads. Shedding is a real thing. Shedding is a real thing. People who've recently been vaccinated will shed to people who are unvaccinated. And I'll just recite one study which is truly fascinating, and thank you, Pierre. So there was, in the initial stage of this shenanigans, they were just vaccinating the elderly, or should I say adults, not children. So there was a study that looked at the children of vaccinated versus unvaccinated parents. Okay, so the children were unvaccinated parents or from vaccinated parents. Those kids from vaccinated parents were shown to have a significantly higher risk of dying independently up to about 18 weeks. So we know that shedding is a real thing and it affects people. There is a study that's going to come out in the next 2 weeks which actually prospectively looked at shedding in women. They exposed women to people that have recently been vaccinated, and they looked for changes in their menstrual cycle, and they found an astonishing change. So shedding really is a serious issue. So I think 2 of the most important things that we face are shedding, tumors, and then as Dr. Urso said, even in asymptomatic patients, if you do MRI scans, you can find evidence of myocardial inflammation. So the long-term consequences of these genetic therapies is a really scary concept, and we still don't know the answer. Thank you.
Dr. Marek, thank you so much. The next hero, who was actually totally persecuted by his hospital system. This man gave.
So there you go. There's, some food for thought, right? Whether or not you believe in this particular doctor and you believe other doctors, that's totally up to you. But again, so the only place you're going to hear anything like this in this city, I think, in public is probably through this forum. So it needs to be part of the conversation instead of just hearing the one side all the time. You need to hear doctors who are renowned and basically top of their field. And in this case, it was Paul Merrick, who he is mainstream heart, diabetes, and Alzheimer's medicine is his forte, if you will. So again, right, a lot of telling things there and things to think about. That's all we are saying here. And if you take things at face value, just from what we hear, like we were told from what we were listening to about the CBC the last few days, and just everything they say, and that's all you're using as your source of truth, and then it's not, like it's good to get all sides and then make your decision, right? There's a reason why you get a second opinion when you go to a doctor. There is a reason for it. And the stories are immense. There's so many stories of people being misdiagnosed of things, having operations for things they never had before. So we know that there's mistakes being made in the medical field. Let's just admit them. Let's just admit them and move on. It's just like when we make a mistake, personally, we say sorry. We realize what we did. We say sorry. We try to make up for what we did. If it harmed somebody else or offended someone else, we're sorry we did that. We try and make restitution for it. We did this, so here is something to make up for it as much as I can, and then don't do it again. So that's the steps, right? So anyways, hopefully we learn. Hopefully we can look back at this time and not repeat certain things in the future, not go down the same road just because we didn't take a look at the positives and the negatives and what we did in the past, whether we're a government at any level, whether we're part of an institution like the medical institution or education or economic or whatever it is. How did we handle the last 3 or 4 years? And let's not do these things again. But anyways, whether or not how much of a change that's going to make in, on the large scale, we know personally we have the ability to change ourselves and change our sphere of influence around us. So where truth matters less than trust, this is Sudbury News Talk. We really appreciate you being on today, and stay around for more great programming, including Earshot at CKLU 96.7 FM. We'll be back, God willing, same time, same place tomorrow. Have a great, wonderful Thursday, everyone. Ciao.
This is Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.